Welcome back. So in part 1 we learned how to create an activity summary sheet for a project, enter and upload evidence for that project, and how to link that evidence to the activity summary sheet. Now we will look at how to associate that evidence with specific learning outcomes and how to associate the resulting evidence learning outcome unit with the activity summary sheet. So at the end of part 1 we had just finished entering our evidence and had clicked on the Save and Assign to Learning Outcomes tab. What appears is the associations page for that piece of evidence. Every piece of evidence that you add should be linked to one or more learning outcomes, and you do that here. So for the health needs assessment, I'm going to click into the surveillance and assessment domain and scroll down until I find the relevant learning outcome or learning outcomes. In this case, I have selected KA 1.2, Undertake a Health Needs Assessment. The red star by the box indicates that it is mandatory to write something here. A brief explanation of how the piece of evidence demonstrates the learning outcome should be written here. I can select as many learning outcomes as I like from any of the learning outcome domains, but in this case I'm only going to select one. Once you have selected your learning outcomes, don't forget to click on the Save and Go to List of Evidence before you leave this page, otherwise you might not register the learning outcomes. You have now created an evidence learning outcome unit. You can go back and edit the evidence learning outcome unit by clicking on the Edit tab. In addition, you can check and modify which ARCP the evidence has been tagged to by clicking on the ARCP tab. Here we can see that this evidence has been applied to my next ARCP. To prove now that there is a link between the activity summary sheet and the evidence learning outcome unit, I will return to the activity summary sheet. You go to Assessments and then click on Outstanding Assessments. Here, the activity summary sheet I created previously has been saved. I then click on that. When you first revisit the activity summary sheet, the evidence is not there. To see the evidence attached to the activity summary sheet, you must click on the Edit tab. Now I can see I have some evidence attached, and you can see that the Phase 2 learning outcome, KA 1.2, which was associated with the evidence, has now been attached to and appears on the activity summary sheet. The last thing to do is to press Submit and Send to Other Party. This will send the activity summary sheet evidence learning outcome bundle to your project supervisor for review. Once your project supervisor receives the activity summary sheet evidence learning outcome bundle, they can only approve or reject it. If it is rejected, for example because your project supervisor wants you to add more learning outcomes, the ePortfolio does not allow you to subsequently edit the rejected activity summary sheet evidence learning outcome bundle, and you will have to create another one from scratch. Therefore, to make the process more efficient, I would recommend sitting down with your project supervisor prior to creating the activity summary sheet evidence learning outcome bundle in order to have a discussion and agree what to include in the bundle before you go ahead and submit it to them. This face-to-face contact with your project supervisor will give you the benefits of discussion and feedback on your work, you avoid sending too many system messages to your supervisor, and you avoid getting too many rejection emails when something needs to be corrected. This completes the basic process of getting your activity, evidence, and learning outcomes recorded onto the ePortfolio system. Once you've accumulated sufficient evidence to sign off a learning outcome, you should generate a learning outcome sign-off sheet. We will look at how to create a learning outcome sign-off sheet and subsequently submit this to your educational supervisor for sign-off. Go to Assessments and then click on Enter New Assessment. Looking at Choose the Assessment to Complete, select Learning Outcome Sign-Off Sheet. You will also need to select your educational supervisor as the person who will approve the assessment, as only your educational supervisor can sign off learning outcomes. Then click Enter Assessment. What will appear next is a screen where you will be required to enter the specific learning outcome you want to sign off, in this case KA 1.2. You then put the phase at which the learning outcome should be signed off. In my case, phase 2. Then click Continue and enter assessment. On the next screen, a sheet appears with the learning outcome and phase in which it is to be signed off, along with a list of the activity summary sheets and/or evidence that you have recorded and have had approved as contributing to this specific learning outcome in this specific phase. The last thing to do is to press Submit and Send to Other Party. This will send the learning outcome sign-off sheet to your educational supervisor for review. Once your educational supervisor receives the learning outcome sign-off sheet, they can only sign it off or reject it. A few final thoughts. The system-generated case-based discussion and direct observation of public health practice assessment forms are not yet behaving as intended. It's best to avoid these until the faculty have announced that they are working. Instead, use paper-based versions of both forms to record such events with your supervisor. You can find copies of these forms by going to Evidence, List Shared Evidence, and you will find both of them here. These paper-based forms can be scanned and uploaded and used as evidence in the Activity Summary Sheet Evidence Learning Outcome Bundle method, which has been described in this video. This concludes this short beginner's guide to the Faculty of Public Health ePortfolio version 2. I hope you find it useful. Please get in touch if you have any comments or questions.